His name became a punchline for late-night jokes. He was branded as something he insisted he wasn't. And through it all, he stayed quiet. We saw him show up to courtrooms, dressed sharp as ever, his sunglasses hiding his eyes. Sometimes he even managed a little smile for the cameras. But behind those glasses, behind that smile, he was crumbling. It wasn't until much later, in an emotional interview, that he finally said what we all suspected. And his words, well, they stunned people. He admitted, without any hesitation, I was broken. I didn't even want to get out of bed. I felt like everything I had worked for my entire life was gone overnight. Just let that sink in for a moment. Here was a man who had spent more than 30 years building a career. Who had given the world some of its most beloved characters. Who had fans in every corner of the globe. And yet, he felt like it had all been ripped away. He said he felt abandoned. Not just by Hollywood, but by people he thought would always be there. People he trusted. Friends who, he thought, would have his back. Instead, they distanced themselves. Pretended not to know him. And that kind of betrayal, it's not something you see coming. He said it was like walking into a room full of people he knew, and suddenly realizing everyone was looking at him differently. Judging him. Treating him as if he was already guilty. Long before he'd ever had the chance to tell his side. And he confessed that those days, they were the darkest of his life. Have you ever felt that way? Like the world turned its back on you? Like the people you thought would stand by you, just disappeared? It's a pain that words don't quite capture. But here's the thing. Even in that darkness, Johnny found a reason to keep going. And when he talked about it, his voice cracked. He said the one thing that kept him alive, the one thing that got him out of bed when he didn't want to, was his kids. He said, I had to be strong for them. I had to show them that you fight, even when you're at your lowest. Isn't that powerful? Fans had always wondered how he kept showing up. How he kept walking into courtrooms, walking into press junkets, facing the cameras, smiling, cracking jokes, when it looked like everything in his world was crumbling. Now we know. It wasn't for him. It was for his children. And that wasn't the only thing he did to stay sane. There's something most people don't know. Something even his biggest fans may have missed. During those years, when he was at rock bottom, Johnny started carrying around a little notebook. Everywhere he went. In his jacket pocket. In his bag. On his nightstand. Whenever he felt overwhelmed, he'd pull it out. Scribble down his thoughts. His feelings. His fears. Things he couldn't say out loud, he put on paper. It became his therapy. His safe space. And one of the lines he reportedly wrote in that notebook. If the world can't see my truth, at least my kids will. Let that line sink in for a second. If the world can't see my truth, at least my kids will. That one line says everything about who Johnny really is. And you know, there's something we can all learn from that. Life doesn't always play fair. Sometimes you'll be misunderstood. Sometimes you'll be misjudged. Sometimes you'll feel completely alone. But if you can hold on to your truth, and if you can hold on to the people who really matter, you can make it through anything. Johnny's confession, as heartbreaking as it was also a lesson. A quiet, powerful lesson. Because it showed us something we often forget. Something so easy to overlook when we're caught up in our own struggles, or when we look at people like him and think their lives must be perfect. It was a lesson about resilience. About standing back up, even when you feel like the world has knocked you to your knees and left you there to figure it all out on your own. Think about it. Here's this man, one of the most recognizable faces on earth. He's got movies that have earned billions of dollars. He's got an entire generation who grew up watching him, quoting his lines, dressing up like his characters. He's got fame, he's got money, he's got the kind of career most people could only dream of. And yet, even someone like him can fall. Even someone like him can feel broken. That's the thing about resilience, it doesn't mean you never fall down. It just means you find a way to get back up. And Johnny showed us what that looks like. Even as the headlines got uglier, even as people turned away from him, even as doors he thought would always be open started closing in his face, he kept going. Not because it was easy. Not because he felt strong. But because he had to. Because there were people depending on him. His kids, most of all. He could have just walked away from it all. Disappeared. Given up. But he didn't. That's resilience. But there's another layer to his story. It's also a lesson about love. And not just romantic love, either. This wasn't about a fairy tale or finding someone to complete him. This was about a deeper kind of love, the kind that anchors you when everything else in your life feels like it's falling apart. For Johnny, that love was his children. It's easy to say, I'd do anything for my kids. But to actually live it? To keep going through some of the hardest days of your life, to put on a brave face even when you're shattered inside, to choose to fight because you know they're watching you, that's something else entirely. Johnny said it himself. He said, I had to show them that you fight, even when you're at your lowest. And that's love, isn't it? Not the kind of love you write songs about or post on Instagram. But the quiet kind. The kind that keeps you alive. The kind that gives you strength you didn't even know you had. And maybe that's the biggest lesson in his confession. That at the end of the day, what really matters, isn't how much money you make. Or how many awards you win. Or how many people say they admire you. What really matters is who you are when everything is stripped away. And who you choose to keep fighting for. There's also a lesson here about never letting go of yourself. That might be the hardest part of all. When everyone around you is telling you you're wrong. When people are calling you names. When the world tries to rewrite your story, paint you as something you know you're not, it's so tempting to just give in. To start believing the lies. To let go of the person you used to be. But Johnny didn't do that. Even when he was at his lowest, even when he felt abandoned, even when people treated him like he was guilty before he ever had the chance to prove himself, he held on to his truth. He said it best in that notebook he carried around with him. That one line. If the world can't see my truth, at least my kids will. That's such a powerful thought, isn't it? It's a reminder that even when no one else seems to believe in you, you have to believe in yourself. Even when no one else is listening, you have to keep speaking your truth. Because at the end of the day, your story belongs to you. Not the tabloids. Not the people who walk away when things get hard. Not the strangers who think they know you because they read a headline. Your story is yours. And honestly, that's why so many people still love him. It's not just about the movies. It's not even just about the characters he's played. It's about the man behind it all. Because deep down, we see ourselves in him. We've all been misunderstood at some point. We've all felt alone. We've all had moments when we wondered if we were strong enough to keep going. And when we see someone like Johnny, someone who's been to the very bottom, and still found a way to keep climbing, we're reminded that maybe we can, too. It makes him relatable. Human. Real. Even after everything he's been through, he still shows up with that same quiet confidence. That same spark in his eyes. That same rebellious grin that says, I'm still here. And isn't that what we all want, in the end? To know that no matter what life throws at us, we can still say, I'm still here. So Johnny's confession, as heartbreaking as it was, wasn't just about him. It was about all of us. It was about resilience. It was about love. It was about holding on to who you are, even when the whole world is trying to convince you to be someone else. And maybe, that's why we'll always root for him. Because deep down, his story reminds us of our own. And that is why Johnny Depp will always have a place in our hearts. Not just because of the movies. Not just because of the characters. But because he's real. He's raw. He's human. That's what makes Johnny so unforgettable. Sure, we fell in love with Jack Sparrow's charm, Edward Scissorhands' quiet sadness, the Mad Hatter's quirky brilliance. Those characters left their mark on all of us. But beyond all of that, it's who he is underneath the costumes and the makeup that really stays with you. He's real in a way that Hollywood rarely allows people to be. He doesn't pretend to be perfect. He doesn't hide the fact that he's stumbled, sometimes more than once. He's made mistakes, some of them big, some of them messy, and he's never really shied away from owning them. That kind of honesty is rare, especially in a world where so many people are trying to project this polished, flawless image. Johnny never tried to be flawless. He tried to be himself. And that kind of rawness is what draws people in. Because deep down, we're all flawed too, aren't we? We all carry scars. We all have regrets. We all know what it feels like to fall short of who we want to be. So when we see someone like him, standing there, imperfect but still fighting, it's impossible not to feel something. He's human in a way that reminds you it's okay to be human too. He's been hurt more times than we know. By people he loved. By people he trusted. By strangers who didn't even know him but judged him anyway. He's faced heartbreak in ways most of us can only imagine. And yet, he never let that destroy him. He's been knocked down. Publicly. Brutally. Over and over again. In front of cameras. In front of the world. And every time, he found a way to stand back up. Maybe a little bruised. Maybe a little slower. But still standing. And that's something we can all admire. Because it's one of the hardest things to do, to keep getting up when the world keeps trying to push you down. To keep showing your face when people are whispering behind your back. To keep fighting for yourself when it feels like nobody else is fighting for you. That's what makes him more than just a star. It's not just about the movies. Not just about the characters. It's about the man who shows us what resilience looks like. Who shows us it's okay to fall, as long as you keep getting up. Who reminds us that being human doesn't mean being perfect, it means being real. And that's why we'll always admire him. Because in his story, we see pieces of our own. And if he